Two brothers, 14 and 17 years old, put on a boat alone and sent to a country they'd never seen because staying home was more dangerous than weaving. That's how one of the biggest toy companies on Earth actually started. Not in a lab, not with a business plan, with a pile of fabric scraps nobody else wanted. Here's the strange part. For almost 20 years, this company didn't make a single toy. No dolls, no games, nothing you'd recognize. It sold cloth leftovers and pencil boxes. So how does a business built on scraps end up owning G.I. Joe, Mr. Potato Head, Transformers, and Monopoly? And here's the thing. This isn't some polished founder's myth with the rough edges sanded off. This is two kids with no money, no English, and no plan beyond survival. Stick with this one. The answer says a lot about what it actually takes to build something that lasts, and it starts somewhere you'd never expect. Let's go back to 1903. In a small village in what's now Poland, a Jewish family is watching the world around them get more dangerous by the year. Mobs, violence, the kind of thing that makes parents do something drastic. So they do it. They send two of their sons, Hill, 17, and Henry, just 14, across an ocean. Alone. No safety net, no guaranteed job, just an address in New York and a promise that things would be better on the other side. They land, and they do what a lot of immigrants in that era did to survive. They go to Manhattan's garment district, and they get into the textile remnant business, which is a fancy way of saying they buy leftover cloth, scraps, the stuff mills couldn't sell as full fabric, and they resell it. It's not glamorous, the margins are thin, but it's honest work, and it's theirs. By 1923, the brothers, now joined by a third, Herman, moved the business to Providence, Rhode Island, and register it under a new name, Hassenfeld Brothers. At this point, if you told them they'd one day own the rights to Monopoly, they'd have laughed you out of the room. Then, something small happens, something almost accidental. The brothers notice that school children in the 1920s carry their pencils and supplies in wooden boxes. Plain, boring, nothing special. And there, sitting on piles of leftover fabric. So, they try something. They line the pencil boxes with cloth remnants, the same scraps they'd normally just resell as is. And it works. Kids like them, parents like them. The covers start selling faster than the fabric ever did. This is the moment everything changes. Not a toy, not an invention, a scrap of cloth wrapped around a wooden box. By the mid-1920s, they're not just selling the liners anymore. They're making the entire pencil box themselves, with 8 employees, all family. Now, you'd think that's the happy ending. Struggling immigrants find their product, business takes off, everyone's fine. It's not that simple. It never is.
The Great Depression hits. Banks collapse. Factories across Providence go quiet one by one as owners run out of money to pay their workers. And somehow, against every odd, Hassenfeld Brothers grows through it. By 1929, they have 150 employees. A year later, 200. Annual sales climb past $500,000, mostly pencil boxes and cloth pouches filled with school supplies, sold to families who, even in hard times, still had to send their kids to school with something to carry their pencils in.
Henry Hassenfeld runs the place like a father runs a household, generous when he can be, but sharp enough to survive a decade that ruined companies twice his size. But here's the thing about depending on one supplier for your core product. You're never really in control. No matter how well you run your own company, someone else is holding the piece but keeps it running. Their pencil supplier starts raising prices, and then, this is the part that stings, that same supplier starts making pencil boxes too, undercutting the very company that had been buying from them for years. Betrayed by the hand that fed you. That's not a metaphor, that's exactly what happened. And for a lot of businesses, that would have been the end of the story. Henry Hassenfeld doesn't fold. He doesn't beg for better prices. He does something bolder. He decides, if they won't sell us pencils fairly, we'll make our own pencils. In 1935, Hassenfeld Brothers starts manufacturing pencils from scratch. No experience in it, no guarantee it works. It becomes one of the most reliable moneymakers the company has for the next 45 years.
Think about that for a second. A company built on leftover scraps just taught itself an entirely new industry because someone tried to squeeze them out. That instinct, turn the setback into the next product line, that's the real DNA of this company. Not the toys, not yet, this. The late 1930s roll around, and the Hassenfelds start noticing something. They're already making school supplies, paint sets, crayons, modeling clay, all of it sitting on shelves next to the pencil boxes that built the company.
And somewhere along the way, someone in that family, we don't know exactly who, and honestly it probably doesn't matter, looks at those products and asks a simple question. What if kids didn't just carry this stuff to school? What if they played with it? It's not a huge leap to toys, it's barely a leap at all. So they start small, doctor and nurse kits, so kids could play pretend at being grown-ups. Modeling clay sets, cheap enough for almost any family to afford during a decade when almost nobody had money to spare. Nothing revolutionary, just an extension of what they already knew how to make, sold to the same families who already trusted the name.
But in 1943, Hillel, one of the two original brothers who crossed that ocean, passes away. Henry and Herman keep going, and in 1944, they do something that would define the next 80 years of the company's identity. They give their toy line a new name. Not Hassenfeld Brothers. Something shorter, sharper, easier for a kid to say. Hasbro. And from there, the moves get bigger.
A plastic potato with stick-on eyes becomes the first toy ever advertised on television, Mr. Potato Head. A children's doll gets reimagined as a posable soldier, and the term action figure is invented to sell it, without it sounding like a doll, G.I. Joe. Decades later, they buy Milton Bradley, then Parker Brothers. Suddenly, the company that once sold fabric scraps owns Monopoly, Scrabble, Risk, and Cluedo. The games that have wrecked more family game nights than anyone wants to admit.
Robots that turn into cars. Foam dart guns that started 100 living room wars. A purple dinosaur people either love or can't stand. All of it, every license, every acquisition, every billion-dollar franchise, traced back to two teenage boys standing in a garment district with no money, no English, and a pile of cloth nobody else wanted. Here's what gets me about this story. It's not really about toys at all. It's about two kids who had every reason to fail. No language, no money, no safety net. Just each other, and a willingness to look at something worthless, scraps, and ask what else it could become.
Think about how many people look at leftovers and just see waste. The Hassenfelds looked at the same pile and saw a pencil box, then a pencil company, then eventually an entire industry built on imagination. That's not a business strategy you learn in school. That's survival turned into a habit. And eventually, that habit turned into a legacy, one that's still sitting in toy aisles, board game boxes, and kids' bedrooms 100 years later.
So the next time you see a Nerf blaster in a toy aisle, or watch someone flip over a Monopoly board in frustration, remember where it all started. Not in a boardroom, on a boat, with two brothers and a pile of scraps nobody else wanted. If you found this deep dive into the hidden history behind everyday brands interesting, consider subscribing. There are more stories like this one waiting. The quiet, human beginnings behind the things we grew up with.